So here we go. This project today is this lovely ornament, and we are going to be making it into a boxed hanging ornament. This is everything that you need. These are all your tools. The 6-pound fishing line, fusible interfacing, backing material, ribbon. I'll explain why I have 2 pairs of scissors later. But this is basically everything you're going to need. So give me a second, we'll get ready and we will get started. Please bear with me while I get going on this. So we're going to cut about a 1/2 inch all the way around. You don't have to be too persnickety with this. I'm trying to sort of be relatively tidy as I'm doing this by cutting this into my trash can down below. So one of the reasons why I have 2 different pairs of scissors. One is for big long cuts like that, and one is my nippy scissors. I actually like my old ones a little bit better. The design was a little nicer, but you'll find that when you try to make cuts into regular fabric that are small, using the tips of your scissors can sometimes make the fabric bend and in the tips. And these are brand new scissors and they'll still do it occasionally. I find it annoying with certain fabrics, it just is that way. So I use the nippy scissors. And so starting anywhere, I make small V cuts. Usually on something this big, it's going to be about every 1/2 inch. And I do this all the way around. I do not go up into the stitch. I hang out at least, I try to stay at least 1 stitch away. It's a bit monotonous. My apologies, I'm floating away from the camera here. You know, until you start trying to actually take pictures of yourself doing something, you don't realize how much you don't work actually over a table. You tend to just, well, for me, I try to have it hit the trash can. Okay, so now we're going to set these aside, and we are going to start. We're going to pull our iron over here. The iron, I have it set on linen, which is the highest heat I can get, and full steam, have it full of water. And the next thing I do is I start taking the waste canvas and I just start bending it over like this. Okay, and when I get, you know, a quarter of it done, flip it over. And just put it right on that edge. Okay. So what that is doing, now it's while it's still steamy, I'll roll that edge so that any of that waste canvas isn't going to be seen. I really want to pull it tight. So needlepoint canvas has a lot of sizing in it. And when I mean sizing, I mean like magic sizing, it's fabric sizing in it. And the reason why we have to block pieces is because as we work on them, especially if people don't use a frame, then just while they're stitching, then their hands tend to break down all of the sizing, and canvas gets all soft and everything kind of shifts. And by steaming it, it reconstitutes the sizing and puts it back. Makes it sticky again, basically. Okay. Now, this is a relatively big ornament, so and I'm sorry if the lights keep flickering. My iron does that. I guess I should put it on a different plug. Okay, almost there. Now, some people, they may see me doing this and go, oh, well, you know, that's just pointless. One of the things I want you to watch out for is if you have a lot of loops or fluffy stitches on the top of this and you're doing this edge work, I want you to just do a light steam on it, then push it down with your fingers like this so that you're not compressing down stitches that need to be voluminous. Okay, so don't ruin the piece because you're trying to get these down. If you can't put these down completely, that's okay. Just do the best that you can, and you know, like I said, do a light steam and then try to pinch them back. It'll make your life easier in the long run. At least that's what I've found throughout the years. Now, one of the things you can do is, or need to do, should do, is look at it and make sure that it still looks square, okay? Because sometimes when I'm handling it, it's going to take it out of square, and it needs to be adjusted and kind of pulled a little and almost like reblocked by hand. And if you turn it over and you go, oh wow, it's shifted out of shape again, and wool has a tendency to do that just because it has a memory. So as you're stitching it, and especially if you're holding it in hand and not using a frame, then you're going to end up with it going back the way that it went because that wool just pulls it back to it. But because this is mainly pearl cotton, it's fine, and I don't see any issues with it. Okay, so now since we have our iron out, we're going to quickly bring this over. This is my fabric that I'm using for the back. It is a flannel, and what I want to do is, I know, here's my OCD showing a little bit here. I am about to put fusible interfacing on this fabric, okay? Fusible interfacing has a glue on one side and just this is the Flex Fit, I think it is, and this is just like cotton. Okay. And what I find is that it keeps this rather soft material from being misshapen when I try to do the next step. Especially when I have to sew into it, I don't want to have my fishing line pull through this fabric. It is especially important with velveteens or very delicate silks because you'll get a run in it. Certain materials will run, and this will help stabilize the whole thing. So now that I have it square, because flannel loves to shift, and I do not want the back of this to look like it's all wonky when we look at it. Okay, so we just put that on, get a little steam going. Make sure that glue is really adhering. This particular material did not have a front and a back to it. At least I hope not. Nope. Oh, I've done that before too. Now, as long as this is kind of hot and steamy, you could literally take this and pull it back off again if you needed to, say, reposition it or something like that, okay? As it cools, it's very hot. I want you to keep just making sure that that glue doesn't let up while it cools off, okay? Okay. You can test it by moving it and seeing if there's any little pucker spots where it's not glued, any bubbles in it. But I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have to make a big stage change here, so hold on one second. Okay, and got my X-Acto blade, my pen. Now this, I use a template for any kind of round ornament that I'm doing. I do not roll this over and then go trace the outside of it and use that, because no matter what we do, because of the angle of the stitching, it's just never going to be perfectly round. And sometimes you'll stitch something and go, wow, that's just perfect. And then you'll put something next to it and go, wow, that's really off kilter. We're lucky. This one is very right on circle, for lack of a better word. It just so happens that it is a 5-inch, and so it's very close to this CD size. Okay, see how there's a little more on this side, a little more up there. So what we do, because I don't think, this is like just in between the two sizes that I need. So you get to see it the fun way. So you take your template. Now I could go to my computer and I could print out the exact round template and make another one that's in between, but this is a size that is that I rarely do. So I'm just going to do this one by eyeball. Let me put my cheaters on here for a second. And by the way, I'm wearing 2 pairs of glasses now. Okay, so what you do is you just, because this isn't going to have any padding underneath it, we want it to come as close to this size as possible, the original size. And so we're going to take off, I think that's just about, it's not even, It's about 1/8, right? Yeah. Yeah. Whoops. Okay. And this little bit makes a huge difference. And here's why. Because your thread on the back side has to be factored into how much there needs to be. Now, I don't have, I've been doing this for a long time and I can usually do it pretty well and keep it, I mean, plus, you know, I draw all the time. But definitely just print yourself out a circle, excuse me, on the computer. Make a measurement and then you can just cut around it. Use a piece of cardstock when you print it so that, like one of them that I have, this is just regular paper and it's really difficult. You'll constantly go off the mark. So just, you know, grab some cardstock if you can. I'm sorry, this is very boring. Pretty good. Okay. So this particular foam core, let's take a second to talk about foam core. This foam core is 1/8" foam core. You have to go to the framing section of your local craft store, or a framing place would have it as well. And this is acid-free 1/8" foam core. I only use the acid-free foam core not because, oh, you know, it's archival. Yeah, that's important. But it's so much easier to cut because this has a, I don't know, the texture's just totally different. It has a better tooth to it, so it's just easier to cut. Something about the other that's not acid-free, it just must have more plastic in it. Well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it's all plastic, but the type of plastic they use in it is a cheaper grade. Obviously, it has acid in it, and yeah, we won't go on about that. So anyway, so now we're going to take our very sharp X-Acto blade. Don't be afraid of this, okay? Slow and steady. All right. I'm just going nice and slow right around. I'm not worrying about the angle of my blade, as in, is it perfectly perpendicular to the mat so that we don't care about that. We just care about following the line on the top. And yes, I am trying to push through as hard as I can because I don't like having to go back and deal with little spots where I missed. Okay, not too bad. Let's get rid of that. Now, the reason I said we don't care about what's on this side, oh, look at that. We don't care about this is because we're going to take our blade and at a 45-degree angle approximately, I'm going to bevel this edge off. Now, I want you to think about it as like when you put two pieces of trim together, if you have too much on the edge, the two joints aren't going to come together nicely, right? So I just find that if I bevel this, then when I put this on, this back edge will be sink nicely to the styrofoam we're putting in between. Wow, excuse me, I didn't mean to. I have a tickle in my throat. I'm gonna have to stop in a minute. Okay, so you can see the angle my blade is at. Now I do this pretty much to everything. We're going to be doing, this is the reverse of how I do a traditional ornament, because we're going to be putting the bevel to the back side. But you will see why. Okay. So then I take the back end and I just push down any little edge there. Okay, it's just so that is a very nice knife edge. Now why go through all of this and not just use mat board? It's lighter, sort of, and I don't know, I like foam core. I don't like trying to cut mat board. It's thicker, it's harder, and I just like these properties. Now I'm doing the exact same thing with the end of this, knocking down this edge. Okay. Like so. Okay. Okay. Now, I was going to reverse it, but now I don't think I'm going to. Now, we need to look at this in respect. Okay, raise that up, turn it over. Now we know this is not like we saw. This ornament isn't perfectly round like we maybe thought it was when we just eyeballed it. And we want to make sure, okay, yeah, we got plenty to go around here. Yep. Some of this extra, we're going to have to pull around to the back because these sides will just barely fit over this. But we won't lose too much, surprisingly. Okay, we're going to grab our glue gun, and I'm going to take a second to talk about my lovely new glue gun. It's dual temperature, but my favorite feature on this is the fact that, I'll use my template that I don't really like, is when you pull the trigger, something about it stops it. So you don't have the dribble. I don't know what it is, but it works. So I love it. Okay. So here we go. So, yes, we're undoing everything that we did. But it's given us the hard crease that we need around the edge. And it's, if we hadn't done this, it would be splayed open like this, up like this, and kind of out. This naturally is going to just go right back around this form we're making, okay? All right, so we just slide this right in. And I know you're probably going to think I'm weird for doing this, but there's the two sides that are the closest. We have to figure out how to center this so we're not sacrificing one side more than the other. So this side, that's the tight side there, and that's tight side there. So we're going to glue those sides first, Make sure this is centered as evenly as possible because we do not want to lose these pretty leaves. Now, one thing that we could do is just not fold extra over of that. I think that the stitching might prevent us a little bit anyways because the thread thickness on this is a ribbon that she used partially on the green, and so it's a little bit thicker and it's not really gonna allow us to bend a lot anyway. So here we go. We'll see how it goes. I am using this on low temperature, and because I do not have asbestos fingers, and I still give it a few seconds. I'm putting it right, not too close to the edge. Don't put it right on the edge. I like to just try to catch the tips, and I actually on that one could have come out a little bit further because then when I go to sew any hand sewing, when I come up through, I'm coming up through glue, and it makes it very difficult. And yes, I do hand sew on these. Okay. Pushing it down, pushing it down. Now, you'll see that I try to keep them overlapped a little as I'm going. Now, just like if you've ever, or maybe you haven't, ever done any kind of upholstering, I like to go to the opposite side and do the opposite side. And see, it's just the perfect size, taking that little bit, and you push that down. Now, this time, as I'm pushing down, I'm pulling with these fingers so that it's nice and tight. Okay, this one has to be moved over a little. Glue does not have to be used. If you would like to use a needle and thread and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and like a corset and essentially tighten, 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 tighten all the way around, you do not have to use glue. That is not how I do it. So now we're doing the thicker side, and I can tell that this side has a little more on it than, no, they're about the same, I guess. So I'm going to take the ones in the middle and roll them first so that we can really get, okay, like that. This little bump right here, take it up, come back over and flatten it down. Okay. All right. Now, to the other side. Now, see, we still have quite a bit there, but we're not cutting into the design terribly. And that tree's still right there on the edge. I'm not going to sacrifice the long stitch tree. Okay, still be there. And this is why we use a form, is because, again, it is not perfectly round. And unfortunately, you can tell. You can tell when something is not centered or round that should be round. I'm not going to pull all of that tree tight, because I want to keep it up on the edge so we can still see some of it. I know. Won't that look wonky? Well, maybe a little. But we are not machines. It is handcrafted, so we don't mind a little bit of wonkiness. Okay, so now, we'll take this, and we have to, first we do this. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, so forgive me for just not being expedient. I got a little, this metallic, a little fray in it, so we'll get rid of that so we don't make it worse as we go. I am about to use a ballpoint pen. It is a traditional pen. It is not a gel pen, because gel pens like to leave lovely little schmutzy things everywhere. And the ballpoint stays down away from your work and does not get anything on it. This is actually, this is 1/2 inch craft foam, they call it, but actually this is housing insulation foam, because you can get 5 packs of it, or 5 sheets of it. 5 sheets of it? Yeah, 5 sheets of it for $8. And it's the same stuff that they sell over at the craft store. Okay, now, we just pulled it off like this, correct? Always mark which way is up, because we know that this is not perfectly round, because I, tried to leave a little bit of this, even though when you look at it straight from the top, you really don't see it now. And so we just want to make sure that if there's any little bumps and things, it does follow the way that it was. We know it's vertical this way, and that'll help us in the future for the back side of it, so we're not sitting here trying to match circle sides, and you'll understand why in a second. All right, so for right now, I'm going to move my glue gun. Yeah, my old glue gun just sat there, and I had to keep it over a dish, and it would just dribble and dribble and dribble. It's annoying, and it's wasteful. So here we go. When you're doing this, you do want to try to keep it as perpendicular as you can. Okay, now they have hot wire that comes down, and it almost looks like a jigsaw, and the wire's really hot, and you can move it down, you keep it perfectly flat, and the thing just is here like this, and you go around it. I've never invested in one of those. I just do my best to try to keep it as straight as I can. And when I do it, I tend to go just in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out. And you'll see the motion as I do it for the first run, because then I can try to eyeball it. This popcorn styrofoam, styrofoam in general, is the devil. It will leave little bubbles everywhere. It makes an extremely annoying sound for certain people. That I have a daughter that just cannot stand this high-pitched squeaky noise. One year I used a different kind of foam, and it just exploded this little popcorn stuff everywhere, and just, I thought I'd finally gotten it all vacuumed up, and my dog walked by, and it was like stuck in the hair of his tail. He was a Sheltie, and it absolutely stuck in his hair. And I had to give him a big comb out, well, she loved, but he just kept spreading the popcorn everywhere. It was so annoying. One of my favorite tricks with traditional styrofoam is that if you need to just shave a little edge off of it, what you do is use another piece of styrofoam, because it acts just like sandpaper. I know. This is my exciting life. Squeaky foam. Well, used to be. Yes, I'm going around again. Because if I just pop it out, the back side of it, which you can't even see, little bits of, we're going to raise it up a little so that it comes all the way through. Because now this is a little guide for our blade. So we don't have to like freak out that we're $90. How's it going? Oh, see, there's a little pop out. Bugger. But that's okay, because our ribbon's going to cover it anyway. But I try to avoid, I like the sharp, crisp edges so that if somebody grabs it by the sides and they don't feel a void underneath it, I like to have that supported, if I can. Okay, let's see. There we go. Boop. Okay. Ah. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm not even going to bother, because all of this little schmutz is going to come off too. The only time I care about where it is I don't want it to get underneath the material of the other piece. So we know this is our way up. We know that this is going to fit just perfectly there. All right, perfectly. Now let's see how good we did on the 90-degree. Wow, pretty good. Look at that. Sometimes if you don't get that perpendicular knife all the way around, what happens is that the front circle won't, well, the back circle will have to be smaller than the front circle, or you have to match your front and your back to the exact same size as this, and put a little bit of padding in any spots where you accidentally made your knife cut in a little too far. If it's out a little too far like this, you don't mind, because you can come back and kind of shave it down. You can put your front circle to your back circle And any spots that, like, say it looked like that, you could come back in and take your pen and mark that off and shave that down to the front so that it was the right size. But we did good. This time we did good. I have, for large pieces, especially square ones, I have used a little, wasn't a jigsaw that we had for it because it keeps it completely perpendicular, but that has its issues too. All right, so we're golden there. I think what we're going to do is we're going to trace the back of this like this because we did such a good job. Do we? Yeah. Let's just make sure. So we're going to do this again. Always make sure there's no extra boogers on my pen. Okay. Try to keep that pen angled in a little bit, and you'll see why when. Okay. Again, this way up. Okay. Now I am going to cut just inside of this line because that pen travels a little bit outside. All right. Sometimes I do well, and sometimes I am wavering. Okay. We know that this goes to this. Smush that down a little bit. Looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Again, when we wrap, anytime you wrap anything, the fabric is gonna be make it even puffier. So that was a really good fit for what it was. Again, trying to keep it now this time I'm trying to make sure that I keep this the same width all the way around because the material tends to show off because how we beveled the edge here, so it looks like a curve of a cookie, vanilla wafer kind of cookie. We're going to do the same thing to the back because we want it to match. Some people prefer a crisp edge on the front. If you've ever used foam core before, you realize when you hear this that it doesn't always sound like that when you're trying to use that other kind of standard foam core. Cheap. It's usually cheaper too. It's definitely cheaper. But I get a pretty big piece for just like $7 at Michael's, so. Knocking down those edges again. All right. And then just taking my finger and pressing them down so it's all nice and soft. Okay. So, material. Okay. Sorry, had a little moment of panic. So now I'm going to take, and I can see approximately vertically there's that black stripe going down the middle. Let's try to center it there. Might get a little off center with what I'm about to do. So we pick up our whole thing, right? Long blades. Half inch. Doing exactly the same thing. Hold and turn that we did to our needle point. See, you got a little bit of lift there on my fusible interfacing right on that edge. Okay. I like this so much better than the other kinds of interfacing. The other stuff is the webbing kind of stuff. It just is not good. Too thin, pulls through. Okay, here we go. All right. Again, here I am staying a little further away from the edge than I was before. All right, I'm going to take 2 seconds. Get rid of this. Sometimes those grids bug my eyes. Oh boy, we get to listen to the neighbors outside. Oh, maybe you guys couldn't hear that. Now, you could say, why don't you put a pen mark around it and just lay it down? And this is just always how I've done it. So there's going to be times where I do things that aren't going to make sense to anybody but my little brain. So solely how I do it. All right, here comes the glue gun again. I like to get that tacked on first. Make sure it's kind of smoothed down. Then I grab this, turn it. There you go. Okay. Now I'm pulling this with my thumb as it's cooling to make sure that this is really nice and tight. Okay? Get the stringers off later, Kelly. Okay. I need my needle and tape. Okay. Get all the schniblets off of here. So we know that this goes this way. This particular foam okay. Typically hot glue would melt right down into the foam. Okay. Also, any kind of alcohol-based, says acid-free, washable, blah, blah, blah. But in the past, on regular styrofoam, I have had this where it just melts right down into it. That's why I love this stuff. It's great. Okay, and it makes it impossible to adhere any kind of ribbon or anything else to it. Certain kinds of foam core will do the same, because sometimes if I don't have the right width foam like this for the ribbon size that I have, then, you know, if it's a big thick piece, I can just stack these up and glue them all together. But say I had a ribbon that was, you know, this size that I wanted to use. I could use 2, maybe 3 of this 1/8 inch, or that does come in, this foam core, the acid free, comes in 3/16 as well. And I could just stack them up to get the required length of it. And again, because this is acid free, doesn't mean, see, that's burning right down into that foam. Okay, it makes it melt away. So you've got to be careful. This stacked up would have the paper to support it, but you don't want it to feel like it's bumpy underneath it. So you got to make sure to find the right type of foam to use, or put potentially a piece of, you know, like standard cardboard piece underneath it, wrap it around, which I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about. So here we go. Sorry about the tangent on the glue, but it's something you need to know, that you need to test it ahead of time somehow to make sure that you get the results that you want in the end. Even though it doesn't melt away onto this, I'm still going to glue it onto this side. Okay, it's just a precautionary tale. All right, so that's my up. I'd like to leave a little spot to tuck the cording into at the top. So we know that the top is about there because the stitches are straight on the back side. And because this is a lower temp, we kind of have to hurry because it's gonna dry a lot faster. So we see our arrow up. We have a minute to adjust it a little if we need to. There we go. So we're making basically a Oreo cookie out of this. All right. I just keep pressing on it for a minute while we look at stringers everywhere. The hazards of hot glue. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is I take a pin and I look at this end. I don't care if this gets a little wonky out here. I follow this stitch line straight across. Okay. Yeah, totally lost it as I brought it across. It's right above the S and the M, right? Yeah. There we go. There. Okay. So we got it. So we know where our horizontal line is, right? Now, this is important for if you're doing monogramming or if you have a pattern on it, whether you do your vertical because you have vertical lines on the back of your fabric. Because see, even though I tried to measure with and tried to make it square when I put the interfacing on, to me, I look at that and I can still see a little shift. It's a little wonky, right? Or is it just me? Could just be me. So what I do is I try to make sure that the stripe, the horizontal stripe on the back, is somewhat in line with my front. Okay, so we're gonna glue, glue, glue. Same thing with this one as the last one. Leave a little gap at the top. Okay. Snapper there. Okay. So I'm going to stand up so I don't have to keep lifting it up to show you guys. Put that down. That's sort of it. Now I have to make sure that not too bad. Well, not too much overhang either way. Okay. I'll pick at that later. Okay. So, we are making this boxed ornament. It's going together pretty good. Yeah, there's always somebody who likes to be a pain, sticking out. All right. So now, pins away. And we have to do the main ribbon next. Okay, this is the ribbon that is going to go over this around the center. Okay. So now I'm looking, here's our top. I'm starting about a 1/2 inch from center. Bringing it around. And I'm going to give it a 1/2 inch overlap. Okay. Maybe a little more. Be a little generous with it. Okay. All right. So now, as you can see, this ribbon just fits over the styrofoam. Okay. You can still see some of the styrofoam there. All right. Now I want to double check something because, again, I have been burned in, yeah, literally I have been burned, but I want to make sure that this isn't going to melt away as I put some ribbon on it. Okay. Okay, that feels pretty good. All right. Okay. Now, don't like doing this, but I'm not going to start my glue dead center. Okay. Because if I do dead center on top of dead center, it's going to be a huge, thick pile of glue that I'm going to have to deal with if I have to bust through it for some reason, and I'm a little hesitant to put things dead center on top. Plus, I do a whole ribbon thing on top, and I want to be cautious. Okay. So I'm just going to put a little glue there to get us started. Trying to work quickly because it's the low temp. And you have to work quickly with low temp. This is a porous ribbon. It will push up through it. One of the things you have to worry about with satin is that if you push down on it, some satins, you're not going to be able to put glue all the way under this, all the way around it, because it will discolor the ribbon and make it look funky. You'll literally have to do the whole thing. Well, unless you cover, and even then, sometimes it just doesn't work, where if you put a bead of glue underneath it and it kind of makes it look funky, oh, well, I can always cover it, you know, with the ribbon, with another ribbon over the top. Well, you better test it and make sure, because, you know, I'd really hate for you to try to and then it does not happen. And now you've gotten to this point and you have to peel this off, which is going to lift that styrofoam from underneath it. So with this one, I am only going to tack it in quarter spots so that it doesn't shift as I'm working on cording. See, and it came up through and I totally scooched it with my finger, but luckily it's kind of a burlappy stuff so I can get away with it and not have it affect the final appearance. All right. Like that. Not gonna touch it this time. All right. Because this is a friend of mine's needlepoint piece that she asked me to finish for her, I am sewing the cording on next because it's not mine, and I am willing to put glue next to my sample pieces to be able to show you. Okay, here's this needle that I had laying out earlier. I love it because it's a doll needle and it's long and I can use it as a little pushy tool. I'm sure other people have their own varieties of this little pushy tool. But again, it's not my piece, so I try to be extremely respectful that some people might not want glue. Well, as a professional, I know, well, when I was a professional, I know people don't want glue next to their needlepoint. They just don't, and I respect that. When it's your own piece, that's your choice. You can do what you want. So we're going to hide this later with a bow. I have a lot of extra there, and I really want to take it back a little bit more. Do I want to just cut it and glue it down? Well, I know one thing. This is annoying the heck out of me. I should have taken this edge before I put it down there and kind of brought those little fray bits, bound it at the end with some glue so it wouldn't keep popping out from underneath the other piece. It's starting to annoy the heck out of me. All right, so I am going to, here's our front and center, right? And if I bend it right there, I'm going to cut it right here. Gonna glue my edge. Kind of bring it together. Take some of this glue off. Just gonna hold it. Do a quick cut. I'm going to bend it over again. Make sure that none of my little edges are sticking out beyond. Nice. Okay. That. I'm going to bring it up. Okay. Okay. This is what I mean, layer upon layer upon layer of glue. Okay. All right, so we are done for now with that glue. Ribbon. And no, the glue still has to stay here. Now we sew. Again, if we wanted to, if it wasn't not my piece, or if it was my piece, blah, 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 I would be tucking this piece in here. And I will have a video of the quick and dirty way to do finishing. We pull this a little bit back up like that. And you're just going to take and put a bead of glue. I try to, if I'm going to glue something, I try to run that bead of glue on that side and in the gutter more and not on the face. Okay? Because it's really tough. But I'll show you on the other. Okay? So now we're going to sew. So we need, hold on, curved needle. Okay. I broke my absolute favorite one, which has a little more of a curve at the end. I gotta look. Since I started finishing, companies have went through changes, and I'm kind of picky about mine, and I have not found a good one again yet. If I find one, I'll definitely let you know. So we have this little U shape of no glue in here, right? So we're gonna stick that down in. We're gonna kind of pull that ribbon back up a little bit. We will not be stitching into the ribbon. We will only be stitching into the needle point. Because this is not glued down all the way, it's a loose weave. I don't want to mess with it. And I promise it's gonna tuck right into that edge as we sew. So here's a few other things that you might have been going, what the heck were those? This, because I use it multiple times, I just kind of pop it off my finger, is a bandage. It's a 3M bandage. It's clear. I don't even think I brought the box with me this time. My apologies. And I have a little leather pad in there that I have cut out just from spare leather that I have, because, you know, that's how I am. Never throw anything away. And that is basically my thimble, but I always I kind of pull it back off my finger, and I shove it down in one of these. A little too far. Okay, I know they have them at the stores now, and they have all kinds of fabulous stuff, but this works for me. A lot of times I just use the bandage with the leather, but today I'll show you with this. And of course, oh, I do have. This isn't quite the favorite kind, but because I do use fishing line, I put one on here, or else it will rip right through my skin. Okay. I just want to make sure we all know. And usually if I was still doing this for a living, okay, I'm going to have to take these, even though it's cool in here. Forgive me. These lights get a little hot. Okay, roll our sleeves up here, sewing time. So now, okay, I'm gonna get like a little over an arm's length. It might not get us all the way around. When I wrap the knot, twist, twist, twist. I wrap it multiple times in there, okay? I put it around and around and around. This is one loop, and then I just keep feeding it through and feeding it through, right? So when it pulls down, it has kind of a nice thick knot on it. And then I do it again. This is a knot that they use in fishing to get their hooks. Leave a tiny tail, okay, and then I just dip it in a little bit of glue because then it won't pull through the needle point. Now, put my little thumb on here. Do not need my nipper scissors right now. Okay, so now what you do, if you choose to sew, is you put it, I'm putting it in on the back side of the needlepoint waist canvas. And I'm trying to come up on the inside, see? Okay. All right. Now, with this cording, as I go around, you're going to see me kind of twisting it. I tend to twist it to see which of these I'm going to put it into. Okay, I'm sorry it's black, but that is the best color for this to complement this piece. So I'm going to bring it through. And this time I'm going to catch just the first row, okay? And I want to bring it not too far. See where our thread is here? I only go, you know, about a half an inch out. Push that back down. Okay. All right. Pull it taut. Tug, tug. All right, give me a second because I gotta pull this back towards me a little. Because I gotta hold it closer to me. All right. So now we're on the back side again. Now, here's our thread. Here's the next bump. So we put it through, and you're basically just trying to glide it in between the twists. Okay? So we bring it through, and like that. Now, push that down because as I pulled my needle through, it kind of made it bump out a little. We don't want that. So now, see how nice and tight that is down in there? Okay. Back side. sort of back, sort of first stitch. As long as I keep it on that edge. See, there's that bump again. We just push it in with our finger and hit it. There's our next twist. See? There's our next twist. I'm so sorry black is the one I'm showing you this on, but I'll do it on another one just so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. All right. So I just gave it a little twist to tighten it down, because as you're bringing it over, it kind of untwists. Nice and tight, nice and tight in that gutter. Oh, there's the glue. Okay. Now, back at it. One more. Oh. Okay. Now, we are going to take this there, so we have plenty to grab onto. Hold on a second. Oop. Okay. So I'm going to take this fishing line. We're going to wrap it around one, put it back through again, two, one more time to lock it down, three. Okay. I want you to measure ahead. Okay, give ourselves a little overlap here. Boop. Maybe a little more. Yeah. Okay, and to poke it down on there. Okay. Now, a lot of this, what we attempt to do is, oh, the ribbon will hide it, the ribbon will hide it. When I was a florist, technically being a florist never ends, even if you're not working in the industry at the moment, because you've been doing it for so long, for about 30 years, on and off. Okay, so we're going to give ourselves a little lead, okay, about a 1/2 inch, because we're going to cut this in the middle, right? But I don't want to waste all this. All right. Boom, like that, okay? And we cut. One of the rules of being a florist is always cover your mechanics. It's actually the rule in any time, in anything, when you're finishing it. When you're trying to make it into something that looks professional, you don't want to see a bunch of scraggly parts here and there, and you know, you want it to look beautiful so that people don't look at the boo-boos of, oh my gosh, look at that. And okay, this is one of my tricks. When it's hot, I'm flattening this down little, get a little bit of, I lick my fingers like Grandma used to do when she would test to see if the pop handle was hot or things like that, or the iron. And now we're gonna, now that it's flat, please be careful. It is hot glue. It is hot. Even at low temp, it is hot. Do not burn your fingers. I have done it. And not even on purpose sometimes, you know, where I was just blatantly disregarding even though I knew it was hot. Now we're gonna, when we pull this, it's gonna be tight, okay? But we still have to tuck it down in. All right, so we're gonna take our needle, we're gonna pull this out, we're gonna tuck that in just a little bit. And this is why I glue that end, because I like to really yank on it sometimes. And I use this thing all the time. I'm lost without it. Now see, I still see a big bump there, and this is going down in. So I need to manipulate it a little. I'm going to pull, I know, black, not the easiest one to see. I'm going to pull the front one up a little again, because I pushed that tail down in, and I'm going to pull that other tail down in further, okay? And then looking at it from the front, I need to lift it up a little bit again. But there, it pretty much looks like the never-ending piece of cording. Because instead of just butting the two together and sinking them down in and leaving a little divot, it just looks like one running piece. Last thing I'm going to do put my thumb back on is I'm going to, that's where we were. I'm going to do one more stitch in and I'm going to push that tail up if I go up there. Yes, I'm really bending this needlepoint around. I'm going to take a second, readjust everything. I'm even having a hard time with this black, and I've got like a million lights on me right now. At least it feels like a million lights. Some serious lumens going on here. Okay, there we go. Looks pretty good from the front. Everything's nice and flat. And with that, I'm going to grab a little bit of that twist, and I'm going to run it through just like I do with my knots, my other knots. I do it at least 3 times to make a lock knot. Okay? Pull it tight. Kind of pulled it down in a little bit. And pull it back up. Behave yourself. All right, so here I have this thing. I don't want to see the knot on the back side, and since this is black and the fishing line can get a little shiny, the way to hide a knot, just like in needlepoint, you put it down in, you pull it up through, and you trim it off. Right at the surface, so you never see it. Okay? Now, it's funny. I don't know why, because you can do it this way, but I don't want the thread to show on the face side. So the reason that I started like this is because you're constantly coming up on the back side and in, and you're hiding it into the twist. So I always go with the needle point in my left hand when I sew, okay, a twisted cord on. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side in the respect of I'm going to keep that on, because the facing side, if I stitched it like this direction, okay, I'm coming up on the front side, going into the back, and you could potentially see little bits of the fishing line, but you don't on the back side of it because it's not facing you. You're able to make it disappear. So that is why material towards your left hand. Unless you're left-handed, then it's, obviously you're just reversing everything, but it does work that way. Okay? So I'm going to work on the other side, and I'll be back with you as soon as I get that done. So, okay, both sides are on. I ended at the top, have a little knot there. Now we're going to make one twist, one length of twist. Ended up, I made 2 because I wasn't sure that one of these would do 2 sides, but it did. So next I'm going to make the hanger for it. And I want to grab okay, I do not like too long. I do about 3 inches. Now you could make this out of ribbon or whatever you would like to, you can use cording. You can make it out of whatever you want. Now I'm doing it like this in particular because of the top that we have, it being boxed. So anytime I have to do this, I'm going to take my little thumb thing off there because it gets caught on so much stuff. Alright, feed it through. Putting this in my mouth, excuse me. Alright, sometimes you just gotta use your teeth. 2 and 3 times through and pull tight, locked. Now this is a nice length, so since I don't want to be wasteful, potentially something down the road might, this is where I get myself in trouble and become a hoarder. but you never know. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this end off so that in the future, if I need it, I'll have it. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. Now, I tried to use a piece of scrap and the leads are so short, I'm struggling. Okay. There. All right, don't cut the wrong one. Cut. And cut. Now I'm going to cut it back relatively far. Okay, so there's just the tiniest schniblets on the end. And then move that back because I don't want it getting into the needle point, the glue, accidentally dripping because it does lovely things like that. So I'm going to take this one side, really mush that down into the end. Take some of the extra off and then just kind of roll that. And it mats that tuft right into the end, right into the twisted cord. Do the same thing here. Okay. And we're going to roll that. It looks a little thick. I didn't pull off some of the excess, so we're just going to trim that down a little, i.e. the glue, and if you get a little bit of the twist in there, as long as it's just the fuzz off the end, you don't really care. Okay, you don't want to cut up in here and have your twist unravel or have some weird little wanger sticking out of there like alfalfa. Okay, so why did we do this? Well, because it's going to go in the middle and we don't want to have to cut a hole through our ribbon to stick one down through. And you could do that if it's the right kind of ribbon, but I don't want to. And so we pick our middle. Plus, I have a special reason for doing it when it comes to the bow for this particular style of ornament. Okay. Now, looking at it, I can see that it looks about the right length and all that good stuff. So yes, back to sewing. I could glue it on, but the likelihood that it's going to last, this is the one place, even if I am doing the all glue type of, trying to push that up through, as you can tell, this kind of work wreaks havoc on your nails and dries your skin out. Okay, so there's one tack there and another tack here, and I'm going to explain why I do this to every single ornament I do. I always use a needle and thread at this point because If you want it to last throughout the years, it needs to be tacked down very securely. And I'm sorry, but glue's just not going to cut it in that respect. And this is my opinion. I apologize if you feel that. No, I'm not going to apologize. If you don't mind just using glue, don't use glue. Just use glue. Blah, blah. Sorry, I can't English right now. But I'm very passionate about this part because I had an aunt who made a lot of things when I was a kid. That one year she made all of these Christmas ornaments and gave them out to everyone. And now they were just styrofoam ball base. I mean, hello, it was the 70s. And I totally just lost my thread. There we go. And so now here it is 30 years later, and she did a lot of pinning of ribbon and pinning of fabric and then gluing, and you know, they were gorgeous. I mean, they were the most lovely things, and they're so delicate. So I just keep going back and forth like this until I think I have amply tacked it down. You know, grandkids come in and they grab hold of them and they yank and they pull, and if they're just stabbed in with some pins, now you have a small child with a pin. And the bows come off and it never quite goes in the same way, and so I never use any kind of pins on the ribbons or like on trim of any kind. No. I learned my lesson with my own family's ornaments that better to be safe. Okay, so I'm hanging it in front of myself to try to make sure that it's gonna hang straight when I let it go, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so now the scary part for a lot of people. We're gonna make a bow. Now I gotta test this ribbon. It was way too thick, and I cut it in half, and I haven't tried to make a bow out of it yet. I'm concerned it might unravel. Nope. Yep. Okay. So I'm not going to do that. All right, I got to put you on pause for a second. Okay, so I went over and I pulled a bunch of different ribbon that I have. Some of it's a real thin yellow, thin orange. And as a finisher, one of my biggest decisions on how to finish it is to make it about the needlepoint and not about the bows and the fluff and the everything else. Okay, you know, I put some sparkle on here and there to help, you know, design and move your eye around the piece, but I really want this to speak volumes. I still want it to be pretty, but I don't want it to be overwhelming. When I was in photography, well, art school, and I was in photography class, my teacher would say, put a strong colored mat on a weak photograph that had weak design to it. And sometimes it would help a piece look better. Now, this piece is so bright and so colorful. I don't want to put a bunch of garish colors on it and have it overwhelm this and distract your eye. That's why I've gone with just neutrals. Did something fun on the back because it's apropos for what, you know, Great Smoky Mountains. This is kind of what I think of. Outdoors, plaid, etc. Okay? So we're going to make this bow. And even though I pulled all these, you know, bright, pretty colors and I have all of this, I still am just really drawn to keeping it neutral, putting a thin black ribbon in with the same burlap looking ribbon that's on the side. A lot of times I will layer another thin piece over the top. It didn't look right when I did it. So I backed off of that as well. Because actually that's why I cut this ribbon down, was I was thinking of using it on the side to marry the front and the back. But it just, to me, it didn't add. Didn't add anything to the overall design aspect of it. So I'm going to teach you how to make a tiny bow. And I used to be a florist, as I mentioned, and making corsage bows is one of the things that we had to do. But we used wire, and getting used to using fishing line isn't easy. So we're going to use a generous piece. Okay. And I'm going to make a composite bow, as I like to call it, because I don't want to necessarily, sometimes I will layer ribbon and stack it one on top of another, okay, and put thin, and so you get this custom multi-tonal ribbon, okay, and it can look really nice. No, I don't like that green. It's too garish for this particular piece. And I don't want to just do the single, although I kind of like it. I'm going to try it as a composite and see if I like it that way better. I have plenty of ribbons, so plenty there, so I don't mind making a few ribbons. Keep this piece where you can find it, all right? Because they love to disappear all over the table, even with tons of lights on. So this is how I make a bow. Now, I want to look at the size. That size is going to be a little too big, in my opinion. So I'm going to cut it back. And I'm going to look at it. Yeah, we'll give it a shot. I would rather make a bow twice than to just say, oh my gosh, I've got to, I got to get this done, and then I put it on and it, looks like this ginormous Victorian hat sitting on top of a tiny headed woman. No, we don't want that. Okay, so now we pinch, we loop, we pinch. Pull it out. Measure, pinch. Okay? There. Okay? Now, I'm going to pull it. I'm going to pinch it. And I'm pushing, I pulled it back. So it's laying, I'm going to make a small loop here. Okay? And I kind of stuff it up under my thumb. Okay? I am going to warn you, your hand could potentially cramp by the end of this. Okay, and we put these here to hold them in place. And pull that over so that it's really far under my thumb. Okay? Oh, and it constantly wants to unstuff. So here we are, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2 smalls. Now we're going to take this, all right, going to give it a little twist, get it all nice and straight. And you're just going to wrap it over your thumb. This creates your center. Now, don't panic. I've done it for so many years. You're thinking, how am I ever going to make this? I'm going to do a whole bow video, okay? Because I know it's not easy. And I know you're looking at me going, what? You're crazy. All right, so now, because you wrapped it over, it's naturally positioned right under that thumb. We're going to pinch a small loop. We're doing the opposite this time, okay? And a small loop. Oh, my hand's starting to cramp. Shows you how long. It's been a very long time since I have had to make tons of bows. Tiny bows. Okay, and then we put in our big one. Okay, here we are. Here's our fishing line. Here's the tricky part. Pull that up on your thumb a little bit so you can slide it under. Okay. Whoop, 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 whoop. Where are you going? Okay, gotta let go of the other side. All right. For ease, cut the umbilical cord there. All right. Now I have the piece. I'm going to put this underneath so you can, maybe with this side up, you can see a little better. Now, see where it's at? Because I haven't lifted my thumb up. You're going to grab your fishing line, slide that under your back finger, and just work this under your thumb. Get it centered. Okay, centered, centered. All right, you're keeping it tight. You know, you're keeping control of it. You got to keep that hand securing it. I'm really pulling down on this, okay? Now I'm pulling it back so I can see if it's really centered. And I can tell that by the loops on this side, it's not. Okay. All right. So now repinching here because I got my line all set, and hold on. 1. Oh, lovely. A fly. Go away. Isn't that always the way? And your hands are full. And that's 3. Now, in my teeth. Now it's locked. Pull tight, tight, tight. Now, I'm saying that. Oh, it's not quite centered because I pulled it too far the other way. Okay, so the nice thing is I can hold back onto it, let it relax, pull it the back a little bit. It's all loose again. And very carefully, don't unroll. You can kind of work it back a little bit. Move your thumb. Oh, so carefully. See, I'm not perfect, not even close. So this is why I say you can do this. Just slow and steady. Okay. Let's see how I did this time. Okay. Okay. Looks pretty good. So now I'm going to do a second knot. Got to keep that fishing line taut between those other two fingers or it's going to loosen like it did that first time till you get the second one down on it. Okay? Yeah, I do it lots and lots. Lots of knots, especially since I'm about to kind of see, and I still didn't get it just right. I went too far the other way. So now we're going to pull it and tug it, and we're going to make it centered. Just kind of shifting it, because what'll happen is this is just going to lift, pulling, spreading it all out. Okay. All right. See, and it's gone a little far that way, so I'm just kind of pull on the tail and shorten that a little bit. Don't go too crazy and have your knot come undone. I like to try to grab both ends, and you can recenter that knot in the back. Okay. All right, puffed, puffed, puffed. Okay. So now, like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a look at it. I want to see if I like it like this. I really want it is, I'm going to do 2 in front and 1 in front. Okay. Is it cockeyed on there? It is. Should have done 2 and 2. So I'll do 2 in the back, 2 loops in the back, 2 loops in the back. Okay, you see what I'm getting at here? Okay, a little symmetry there. Makes me a little happier, I guess. Nope. I am not happy with that. So what we're going to do, yeah, you guessed it. Okay. Run it through your fingers a little. Kind of take out all your pre-crimped crimps. So if I want that center, I have to have 2 big loops, 2 big loops. But is it going to get too big? Maybe. We'll see. I might have to start with a new. Yeah. That pre-cut is for that other size. So here we go again. Ready? Start your 2 pieces flat and crimp. Pinch. And pinch. Now, in the actual bow lesson, I will. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a second here and change direction. Instead of waiting, I'm going to put a set of small here. Okay? This burlap is making my nose itchy. All right. Let me see. So one of the things I don't like to do is make a bow that's so big that it impedes it being seen, the needlepoint being seen by covering it. But because this is sitting on the top, it's not as detrimental. So this time, I'm making this loop just out just a tiny bit further, okay? Okay, just a tiny bit. And another loop. Another loop. Now, this kind of bow is obviously going to take time to learn how to do. Okay. When I first started in the 80s, they sent me home with this thickness of ribbon and the ugliest shade of olive colored ribbon, because, you know, they had plenty of it after the 70s. So it was the learn how to make a bow ribbon. And I would sit there and make very simple bows for like bud vase size, back when bud vases were still popular. Okay, now I'm doing the opposite of what I did the last time, remember? I did long, long, short, short, long, long, short, short. Now I'm doing short, short, long, long. Now, we want to make sure, because this gets all twisty towards the end, there, I just pull it off, that it's not flipping over and making a big piece of wad of material in there, okay? So there's too small. Ruh-roh. I forgot to get a new thing of fishing line ready. And final set. Now we don't want to stack it on top. We want to try to make sure that it gets more towards the bottom. But no matter what we do, it's going to be kind of difficult to do that. So make sure to get these just a tiny bit shorter if you can. At this point, my hand is screaming at me and it's saying, who cares if it's shorter? But my OCD afterwards will look right at the issue every single time. And as we all know, when we see a mistake in our work, come on, honey, our eye goes right to it every time we see that boo-boo, that mistake. Okay, I think we're pretty good there. This is very thick ribbon, and it is definitely difficult to work with in that respect. Okay, sorry, I gotta use my teeth for a minute because I cannot move my hand at all. Okay. Looks pretty centered, nice and tight. 2, 3. Whoop, up, 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 it's coming apart. Pull, pull, pull. Okay. No, they're not loving that it started to separate. It's really difficult to do that. If it was a thinner ribbon, you could literally tie this with a piece of ribbon which is another way of making bows, especially for boxed flowers or things you don't want to see the mechanics of. Okay, so here we go. 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. All right, so everything's all, oh, look at that. Not the most fabulous bow I've ever made, but you can tell which side is the top because it's stacked. So we're going to kind of pull this ribbon, okay, because that ribbon folded over a little on itself when we pinched on the to be the top. Well, the last loop's on, however you want to say it. Okay. Don't like how loose that is. So I'm going to grab another piece of fishing line. I don't like how that's laying. Maybe it's good it's a little loose right now so I can manipulate it a little bit more. And this has to come over. Let these come up. Okay. I actually think it's loosening right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop it through a couple times so it cinches down on it a little harder. There we go. Again, the corset effect. Two. Three. Okay. Tight, tight, tight. It's difficult in that other line is right there. I can't let it go, you know, unfurl the whole thing. There we go. There we go. Much, much more stable. And I got it a little longer at one end. Okay. There. So the big loose one, I'm just going to cut it off. I got it cinched down so tight underneath there it doesn't want to come out. That's good, because I want this bow to last a very long time. Oh my goodness. All right, hold on. I got to get my needle nose pliers. Hold on.